My name is Dr. Helen McMonigal. I am a rehabilitation coordinator with Alcohol Forum Ireland. We are a national charity that provides support and services to young people, individuals, families and communities impacted by alcohol or other drug harm. I support people to understand the impact of alcohol on brain health and in particular how alcohol can affect the adolescent brain. Many people might be quite familiar with the harm that alcohol can cause to different parts of the body. So for example, they might be quite familiar with the impacts of alcohol on the liver, but few people might be familiar with the negative effects that alcohol can have on brain health and brain development. What science has been able to show is that the harmful use of alcohol can be disruptive to the health of our brain in both the short and long term across all age groups. Yeah, we have definitely made some strides in relation to youth alcohol use here in Ireland, but we still have a very long way to go and a lot still to be concerned about. Presently in Ireland, alcohol is the most commonly used drug by young people and often the first substance they use as well. What we know from research published by our National Health Research Board is that 1 in 3 young Irish people between the ages of 15 and 24 are drinking to levels reaching the threshold for what's having an alcohol use disorder. And that is clinically significant because what it means is that the person feels unable to control their drinking. It means that they're feeling preoccupied with alcohol or continuing to use alcohol even when it causes problems in their lives. And that can be very concerning for parents because we all want our young people to grow up as happily and healthily as they can be, but the normalisation of youth alcohol use in Ireland can act as a very big barrier to young people reaching their fullest potential. Young people are at a very different life stage than adults. You know, they're still developing emotionally, physically, mentally, and cognitively. Their bodies and brains aren't fully developed like those of an adult, and that makes them much more vulnerable to the negative harms from alcohol. So some of the harms include young people being 4 times more likely to become dependent or addicted to alcohol if they start drinking before the age of 15 than another young person who maybe waited until the age of 21. We also know that rates of depression and anxiety are significantly higher when young people are drinking to harmful or dependent levels. So alcohol use during the teenage years can be linked with poor mental health outcomes. We know that young people who drink alcohol are more likely to become harmed from accidents, engage in risky sexual behaviours, or are more likely to move on to using other drugs or substances. But one of the ones we probably don't hear much about is the harm that alcohol can cause to the developing adolescent brain. And this is something we're hearing and seeing much more about as research in this area continues to grow. There's lots of really important and really significant changes happening in the adolescent brain. The brain at this time is growing and changing in really beneficial and really valuable ways. And I think as parents, we're all quite conscious of physical health and mental health during the teenage years. But the idea of brain health might be a relatively new concept or something we don't think about as often. So what we know is that adolescence or the teenage years is one of the most important stages of brain development during our lifetime. It's a time that the brain is really preparing for and laying the foundations and brain mechanics that young people will need to move on to into adulthood. So from the age of 11 or so, a really crucial period of growth and renewal that sets the young person up for adult life begins, and this continues all the way up to the age of 25. So our brain is not actually fully developed until approximately our mid-20s. But once this development is complete, the younger person will be left with a much more sophisticated, efficient brain and will have a more complex skill set that will see them through the rest of their adult lives. So given that this is such a pivotal period of brain development in terms of young people growing into their full potential, brain health during this time very much needs to be acknowledged, supported and protected by the people around them, and parents have a really important role to play here. For under 18s, no alcohol is definitely the safest choice because alcohol is what is known as a neurotoxin. And a neurotoxin is basically any substance that can damage or impair the working functions of the central nervous system or the brain. And adolescents appear to be particularly vulnerable to the neurotoxic effects of alcohol because their brains are very much still developing. And research has shown just that heavy alcohol use during adolescence can lead to changes in the volume and thickness of the brain, and this seems to happen most areas in the parts of the brain responsible for really important skills like learning, memory, attention and impulse control, and that can leave the young person lagging behind development wise in comparison to their non-drinking peers. It can also have a negative knock-on effect in their schooling, learning and in achieving things they really want to be able to achieve in life. So for a healthy brain and a healthy mind and healthy development, no alcohol during the teenage years is the best approach, and we all have a role to play in supporting young people delay the onset of alcohol use for as long as possible. There are many factors influencing a young person's decision to drink. That can range from aggressive and persuasive marketing and advertising from the alcohol industry, the availability price of alcohol, and to some extent pressure from their peers, and that can feel overwhelming for parents, that they don't have any control. But what you might be really surprised to hear is that one of the biggest influences on a young person's decision to drink is actually their parents. What research has shown in this area is that those young people that have good close relationships with their parents, have parents that provide clear rules and boundaries around alcohol use, maybe have parents that set good examples themselves around alcohol, parents that don't serve alcohol to under 18s, they are much less likely to drink while under the age of 18. So if you can foster some of those approaches in your family, you will go a long way in supporting your young person delay the onset of alcohol use. And this doesn't need to feel like a really daunting task. There's lots of information and support out there for us as parents so that we can begin conversations with young people and begin to take measures that reduces their risk of becoming involved in harmful alcohol use. There's some really good information out there for parents at the moment in approaching and dealing with the issue of alcohol or other drugs. The first is a guide for parents and guardians developed by the HSE. It's called Alcohol and Drugs, a Parent's Guide, and this is available on askaboutalcohol.ie. In this you'll find lots of practical information that will help you navigate discussions about alcohol or other drugs, approaches you can take within the family, and help if any tricky situations that might come up along the way as well. It's a resource that's free, can be downloaded online, and a really great starting point for all parents or guardians. Another one that might be of interest to parents is Alcohol and the Adolescent Brain, a guide for parents and youth workers. And in this we talk about all things related to adolescence and brain development. And again, it provides lots of practical information about how you can best understand and support brain development and approaches you can take to reduce risk of early onset alcohol use in young people. It's free to download from alcoholforum.org. Yeah, this is something I come across very regularly in the course of my work. There can be the perception that in France they have a much healthier relationship with alcohol than we do here in Ireland. But when you actually look at the data, you'll see that France really struggles with problem alcohol use as well. France actually ranks higher than Ireland in terms of the amount of alcohol consumed per person per year. 1 in every 4 young men that die in France, their death is directly related to an alcohol-related cause. So as much as we'd like to believe it, it is a myth, unfortunately. And what studies have found is that if parents introduce alcohol early to children, even if that is with the best of intentions, what happens in the longer term is that the young person is likely to drink more than their peers over time, and more likely to develop problems with alcohol use in later life. A far more effective approach to take is to begin to have age-appropriate conversations with them about the potential harms to young people from alcohol use. You can talk with them about the harm to the brain, for example. Try to keep working on sustaining a close relationship with them. Adolescents need the support and guidance from their parents, and even if they appear not to want that, teenagers still need to have a consistent, warm adult presence in their life as they navigate the challenges of being a teenager. Having really clear rules and boundaries in relation to alcohol use is also really important as well. Parents can often be fearful that if they set rules around alcohol use, that this is more likely to drive the young person into rebellion against them. But actually the data shows that the opposite is true. A young person who sees a parent having a very relaxed attitude about alcohol is more likely to start drinking alcohol than a young person who has a parent that has set very clear expectations and rules about youth alcohol use. So the important factor here is that so long as we are maintaining a consistent, supportive relationship with that young person, they often do respect the boundaries that we set for them. So the best approach to take, certainly if you want to reduce problems later in life and you want to promote healthier brain development, is to work with the support of other parents and don't serve alcohol to people under the age of 18, and very much encourage young people to delay the onset of alcohol use for as long as possible.